So, I'm going to share today the one practice that makes setting work boundaries easy. I'm Nicole Song, America's work life balance coach and author of 24 Ways to Move More. So, when I was a reporter for a decade. I didn't understand boundaries. This was a pretty typical day for me. I'd write a story, probably work a little bit late on deadline, get home, make dinner, and then I would stress. I would go through my notes. I'd bring my notebook home with me. I would go through every note that I had taken around the story. I would go through every line. I'd printed out my story. I'd go through line by line, every single thing in my story to make sure I hadn't made a mistake. And I would obsess. I would obsess over it, literally word by word. Sometimes I'd call sources late at night. Sometimes I'd call the copy desk to change words in the stories. They totally love that. And so I would do this all night. And even if I was seeing people who were doing something, I would, in the back of my mind, I was always thinking about the story. And I would often go to bed pretty late, stressed out from the story. And then in the morning, I would wake up with this big weight on my chest of anxiety, like, oh no, it's out and I can't take it back. So I would feel that weight of like, I put it out there into the world. There's no takebacks. I would go into the office so anxious. I'd be worried that there'd be messages on my phone at work. That blinking red light was something I really dreaded. And then, or if I would have a lot of emails waiting for me around it. And so when this was all occurring, I didn't really understand what I was doing. And this is what I was doing. I was making work more important than Nicole and my own well being. I was making my stories more important than me. I was making my editors and their reaction or their response to things more important than me. I was making readers and their response reaction to stories more important than me. My sources, absolutely, I made them more important than me. And in doing that, there was a giant cost. And the cost was to myself and my capacity and ability to be a whole human who existed in the world. Sometimes would make mistakes, sometimes would do well, sometimes was here to grow. And all of that was such a giant cost. And then if you had talked to me back then about setting boundaries, I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's too hard. I couldn't do that. There's no way I could set boundaries around this. I need to obsess over my stories. I need to work hard. I need to worry and be in all this doubt about whether my stories are good or not, because that's the only way I'm going to know that I really put my best effort in. So if this all sounds very familiar and you're like, this resonates so deeply with me, pop in a like, yes, that's me below in the comments, because this happens to so many of us. We feel that whatever we're doing with work is more important than anything. And here's what's true is you probably worked very hard to get your job. You probably put in a lot of energy and effort. You care about it. It may not be exactly your purpose or calling, but it's something that you're really putting a lot of energy in. You're getting paid and compensated for it, and you want to do well. You want to excel. I am someone who also wants to always excel in whatever I do. Even if I don't love it, I still want to do a good job. And so if that's happening for you, what can now start to you can create for yourself is that work becomes more important than you because it is the definition of you. Like you're letting it actually define who you are, and you're not able to understand who you are separate from it. So you put so much effort and so much energy into it that you lose all sight and sense of yourself. And so when this happens and when this occurs, boundaries are hard. Let me tell you, if you're here to say to me, Nicole, boundaries are hard, I'll tell you, yes, you're right. That's right. It is really hard because until you are clear on why you want them and what they are, they will be hard. So, the one practice that makes setting work boundaries easy is starting to understand for yourself that you need to know what those boundaries are and why they matter. And actually, the practice that's the most important is why do you want to set the boundary? So, if I could talk back to, Miss Reporter Days, Nicole, I would talk to her about why does it matter? And a lot of it would really be around health. It would be around being able to move my body, being able to feel good, being able to rest and sleep at night, and that it actually would be the reason for those boundaries to be put into place. And if I was really clear on that and I started to get clear on like, oh, like it matters if I feel good, it matters if I'm happy and healthy, that my own life is not worth this job and this work that I'm doing. Even back then, not compensated particularly well for it. to really start to see that and start to shift and move out of it, that would actually make boundaries easy. That would make boundaries being like, okay, I'm going to leave work at work. I'm not going to check things outside of work. I'm going to really allow myself to sleep and to rest. And if people are upset, how can I have some groundedness and contentment and being okay with being able to adjust in that situation? So the way to start to make your boundaries really be easy is to understand why you want them in the first place. So if this is resonating for you and you're like, yeah, I am curious, I am in contemplation about why my boundaries matter, put it in the chat. Let me know, because the more you really start to spend some time understanding why you care about your boundaries, that's going to be the place that's really going to start to create some ease and understanding of why your boundaries matter. And this is something that I address in everything I teach in my clear calling method, because crystal clarity is such a huge part of being able to set clear boundaries and really letting yourself get into a place where you can be curious and in wonder and in discovery of what your life is truly about, so that then you can start to get into this fulfilled place and aligned place and really starting to understand what your purpose is. And it has to start from that place of clarity and really starting to understand, like, what is that for me? Why do boundaries matter? And when you get into clarity around boundaries, that's when you can start to make the shift. So if this resonates for you, hit like, hit subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. And I'm just really grateful that you're all here. And keep watching. There's other videos talking about other boundary tips, all related to my clear calling method. And I look forward to hearing from all of you soon. All right.